All right, so this is a future episode that I'm going to make probably for tomorrow. I got to make 5 of these this afternoon, so I'm going to be stuck here for a long time recording and trying to come up with meaningful videos. But I believe that Sunday for me is probably the worst day of the week because you've had one day off from prison labor and you're scheduled to return back to the prison yard in less than 24 hours. So you get a taste of freedom on Saturday, only with the pit of despair in your stomach on Sunday as the hours dwindle down. And the worst part is you can't afford to do anything. You literally have to just sit here. They transfer you from the working yard to your prison cell. Every week there's a prisoner exchange at 5 o'clock on Friday, and then to reinstate your forever prison term at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And it will continue like that for 65 years. You're never going to have enough money to take an actual vacation. You're never going to have enough money to be comfortable. All we do is pay, repeat, work. That's it. That's the life cycle of the proletariat. There is no fun built into the bottom of society. And it's sad because even the basic forms of fun, like Susie Rottencrotch, the town bicycle, that's become inaccessible, or men just aren't motivated anymore in order to head in that direction. We can see the neon sign of the Taco Bell across the street, but the motivation to go over there isn't there anymore, at least among men that I have met and the men that I see that come to this channel, is that the motivations that used to be there for society have somehow vanished. And there's been nothing to replace them. In fact, despair, depression, anxiety, those are a mixed bag of what you pour into your drink every day. And it doesn't taste good, but it's the medicine that you have. So you take it. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's a terrible way to live, to just sit around watching your life waste away. And today, while I was working out, there was a guys probably in their 60s, completely gray, completely out of shape, and they were doing basically the same thing that I was doing in the gym, to just a chest to just a push day. And I looked at them and it's like, even at that age, they can't give up. I think that's the redeeming quality of the proletariat. These men are no longer breeding bulls. These men have been set out to pass to the pasture a long time ago. And yet men won't stop doing two things: beating the governor and working out. Because somehow those two things give you a spark of something. I know it's not a genuine hope, but something about looking at the hub and spanking your monkey is just something just raw and human about it. And I mean, other than that, what else do we do all day? There's just not much to do at all. In fact, sitting here in the dark, waiting for my turkey tacos to be ready, yeah, even the cashier looked at me like, oh my God, you're buying turkey for your tacos? And I'm like, yeah. And it's just like, I don't care how expensive meat gets. I will never do that to myself. And I think that's where a lot of the workers are at right now. Every time I mention to Gen Zero, every one of them that I've had, you're going to have to work 80 plus hours a week. They just look at me like I'm mentally retarded. Like, why would I do that? Because you're wretchedly poor making 18 bucks an hour. That's why. But they don't seem to get it. Gen Z is a generation that no matter what you say to them, they're just going to do whatever they want. Can't afford rent, can't afford to date, can't afford to do anything other than sit at home and play video games. Sure, they'll make a life out of that, and then one day they're going to wake up and they're 40 years old and they're still a virgin. And this country is going to be full of virgins in the next decade. Full. It's going to get to the point where we're going to have to legalize the red light district because there's going to be so many men just sitting around yanking it in a corner. It's gross what this country's become. And it's getting worse. And with that said, let's get into today's script. I found this script, it's the same thing I read every day, but it's got a little bit more spunk in it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt like you were actually living instead of just surviving? Because for me, I don't even remember. Every day feels the same. Work, pay, repeat. I get my paycheck, it disappears into rent, groceries, and gas. And just like that, I'm broke again. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to get ahead. But here's the thing, it's not just me, right? It's all of us. That's the ominous part about this. It's all of us. The lower classes, the lower tier people, the 99%, we're all like this. When that lady was screaming bloody murder the other night, all the pros were poking their heads out of their tiny little shoeboxes looking around. That's how I feel that they are thinking in that same regard about the economy. It's like, when is this going to end? When is the starvation wages going to turn around? And I'll tell you this much, as long as the rich are getting rich, the conditions for us are going to get worse and worse and worse. You think you can't make it right now on what you make? Imagine a year from now, when which your buying power goes down by another 20%. Because as I've said this 100 times, $50,000 20 years ago was a lot of money. $50,000 in today's market, you're not making it. $50,000 is going to cover a piece of crap apartment and a piece of crap Promobile that you're going to be making payments on for the next 6 years. That's what $50,000 is in today's money. And the worst part is, good luck finding that job. Because at the federal minimum wage of $7.25 that hasn't been raised since 2009, that's outrageous. Here in Arizona, they haven't raised the unemployment benefits since the year 2004, I think. It's been 20 years, and it's been stuck at $200 per week. But guess what? You ask them to raise the standard of living for poor people, and they'll tell you it's not possible. There's no maximum wage, but the minimum wage is definitely hardened in stone. These people don't care about the people that are making that money because they don't matter. As I've said, poor people don't matter. Groceries, $10 for a bag of salad. Eggs, $8 a dozen. Rent, my landlord raised it 20% last year, and now I'm paying more than half my income just to stay in an apartment that's falling apart. Or me, infested with vermin. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way it was designed, to keep people like you and me trapped. I used to think if I worked harder, I could make it. Get that better car, buy a home, save for the future. But you know what? I've realized they move the target every single time. Every time the proletariat starts doing better, the buying power of what they make goes down substantially. The $50,000 that I mentioned that was good money 20 years ago is probably closer to $200,000 to $250,000 in today's money. Because think about it, 20 years ago, you could buy a house for $50,000. Today, your house is going to cost anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. I've seen $1 million homes in semi-nice neighborhoods that you would look at and be like, no way. And you're like, yes. And you know why? Because your buying power is crap. So as things cost more, your wages are supposed to increase in order to pay for them. But wages haven't increased. I looked at what this is how ridiculous it is right now. I went on the website of the place that I've been going to get a sports massage for 3 years. Right, my wages haven't changed. Their prices in this place have gone up 500% in 3 years. They want $400 for a 90-minute massage. $400. I mean, that's outrageous. The fact that they could even put this on their website and not feel stupid is beyond comprehension. And that's exactly what it feels like to walk into the grocery store. Or look at your rent that's gone from when I originally moved in here from $500 to $2,000. You're like, wait a minute. It's the same place, except with more cockroaches. All right, let's move on. Gas prices go up, but my paycheck doesn't. Rent goes up, but my opportunities don't. Everything costs more now, except the value of your work. The value of your work continually goes down. And I'm going to blame a lot of it on just being too many people. The markets for work are saturated with everyone thinking they're going to do something that's going to make them better than Tom, Dick, and Jerry, right? Well, I'm going to go to college. Great. Everyone goes to college, right? ASU pumps out another 20,000 graduating students. They come out into the same market. The job market has to somehow take into account that there's 20,000 more people looking for the jobs that the people that are already looking for jobs can't find. So what happens to the value of work? It diminishes and diminishes and diminishes to the point where corporate executives look at people and wonder, let's see how much more desperate they can get. I'm actually surprised that the federal minimum wage hasn't actually gone down. Why, if it's going to be ridiculous at $7.25, let's just make it $1. Let's not even pretend at this point that we care about the people that work in the places that are not paying living wages. I mean, when you have to look at a job and think the benefit of being able to make a living while taking this job isn't there. It's a luxury these days to take a job that pays a living wage. It's a luxury. And it's out of the hands of the filthy, disgusting, clammy hands of the proletariat. In fact, yesterday I was driving to my eye appointment because, embarrassingly enough, for the last 2 weeks I had an eyelash that was jammed in my eye that I couldn't get out, and so I had to go pay someone to take it out. But I was driving there and I turned on Kyrene, and I was driving past a luxury apartment complex, right? 30-foot gates, apartments built like houses, enormous places, right? You're talking about a place that costs $5,000 a month to live. And in front of the gates, literally on the side, there's like the arches and where the gates touch the concrete walls. There was a wheelchair there, just randomly, right? And I looked over to my right and I thought, why would there be a wheelchair there? And then underneath the wheelchair, there was someone sleeping underneath the wheelchair. And I was like, oh my God, that is the perfect $5,000 apartments per month and a person sleeping under a wheelchair at the gates. The perfect contrast between extreme wealth and extreme poverty. A person with nowhere else to go. And he chose to go to the richest area that he could probably push his wheelchair to and sleep outside the gates. That was a horrendous thing to see. I will never unsee that image. So, I just spent $75 on groceries, 4 bags, no snacks, barely enough for 3 dinners, and you know what the craziest part is? This isn't because I'm bad with money. I budget, I plan, I buy generic brands. I even stopped buying coffee out because who can afford a $9 latte? But it doesn't matter how much you cut back. There's nothing left to save. While I was driving to Kroger, I really wanted to get myself, it's Sunday, I have to go back to work. I was going to treat myself to a cafe mocha at at the coffee house across the street. And I was like, Dutch Brothers is expensive, but the line to get to the front of the Dutch Brothers was easily 25 cars. And you're like looking at that, each one of those people is going to spend between $10 and $20 depending on how many people are inside that car. And you think, well, things are bad in the economy, but people are still supplying these corporations, even though they know they're getting gouged by every single thing that we have to touch in the world. People aren't saying no. In fact, we're just putting our head down. We're pushing our money across the table to them and saying, we're okay with being gouged for everything in our lives, from the food that we eat to the places that we live in to the work that exploits us for the smallest of paychecks. But the proletariat just doesn't want to get it together. And when people don't fight back, the exploitation continues. And the less people fight back, the more exploitation will get worse. Think of a McDonald's value meal. When in the freaking hell did you think that a McDonald's meal, a meal designed for poor people, would someday become a luxury that poor people can't afford? $20 for a hamburger, fries, and a drink is not affordable for anyone who's making $20 or less an hour. Yet it is marketed to them. The people that work inside of that McDonald's can't afford to eat at McDonald's. And you think to yourself, this is again, a perfect metaphor for the working class people. We can't afford to work. And it's insane to me to believe that the average person can't afford to work. Because between your car and your rent, you're ending up $500 to $1,000 short every single month. And you're talking about the basics here. Basic pro car, basic living. When an apartment, the average cost of an apartment is $1,800 and the minimum wage is $7.25. Do they really want you living? The answer is obvious. Something's disconnected here. Someone didn't get the memo that when rent is the equivalent of, what was it, 240 hours when I did the math the last time, of minimum wage work, something's not right. They tell us to live within our means, but what happens when our means just aren't enough? Every day I wonder what happens if my car breaks down or if I get sick and can't work, because let's be real, one emergency, one unexpected bill, and everything I've built comes crashing down. And the craziest part is that it isn't just me. It's you, your neighbors, it's your coworkers. We're all stuck in the same cycle. They want us to believe that this is normal, that we should be grateful for what we have. But why? Why should we accept working 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to barely scrape by? Do you ever feel like they want us to be tired, like they want us to be exhausted to notice that the game is rigged? I think so. Here's the truth. They don't want you to know. It doesn't matter how hard you work if the system's designed to keep you broke. They'll keep raising rents, raising prices, raising expectations while giving us less and less in return. And we're supposed to just smile and keep going. I don't think so. The thing is, we're not powerless. The more we share our stories, the louder we become. They can't ignore all of us. I assure you that they can't ignore all of us, because they have ignored all of us. Any person who says that they don't understand why poor people exist is either incompetent or is out of touch, or is the person that's exploiting you to continue making those wages, because it's always the fault of the poor because they're poor, because they didn't try hard enough, because they didn't start their own business. And it was, I believe, the Internet Complaint Department said that private business ownership is down to 4%. If only 4% of people can afford to own their business, look how close that is to the 1%. You're not going to start your own business. You can't compete with monopolies of everything. And working inside of these places, well, there's no job security anymore. You're not going to find job security at the minimum wage at the bottom because you're not paid anything because you're not worth anything. And therefore, you have no value. So to believe that you have any kind of work safety, if you have any job security, you're living in a fantasy world.